Good afternoon, everybody, and thanks for tuning in to John Kelly's Thrive. Today, we're going to be talking about a very important subject. We're going to be talking about what is low self-esteem. I don't think people really understand the term low self-esteem. Not easy to understand if you don't have a little bit of knowledge about it. But low self esteem really is when a person starts to uh, accept and entertain the thoughts of inferiority or inadequacy or insecurity or all the above. Now, just think about that for a second. Inferiority, inadequacy, and insecurity. Low self esteem can mean that or all one of those or all of that. So low self-esteem is pretty powerful. In fact, I wrote a book back in 2002. Well, it was actually published in 2002 by Regnery Publishing, Warning Signs, a Guidebook for Parents. And I had actually taken years to write this book before it was published in 2002. And the reason I did that is because I was so focused and so passionate on low self-esteem. In fact, I felt that low self esteem, walking around with inferiority, inadequacy, or insecurity was a disease. I really believe that because if you look at the definition of a disease, it's anything that upsets the organ, okay? The organism, us, pretty much emotionally or physically. So if you have something upsetting, and especially some type of mental condition upsetting yourself with inferiority or inadequacy or an insecurity, I mean, that's low self esteem. And that's some pretty powerful stuff. Just to give you an example, back in the day, I was a recovering addict before I became a clinician, before I did over 100 television shows. Before I was on the President Clinton commission for the drug strategy of the country. Before I opened up counseling centers, extremely successful counseling centers for over 30 years. In fact, they're still going. That's Extra Care Health Services in New Jersey. I mean, you have to understand that I really understood low self-esteem even before I got into the field, because after all the therapy I was in, I realized that I was hanging on to that was holding on to me. And, it really fueled, if you will, my narcissism, because people that are narcissistic really are trying to get away from, they're running from these underlying feelings of inferiority, inadequacy, or insecurity. It's one of the greater psychologists, I think Adler, put it out there. He said anybody that thinks they're superior, which narcissistic personalities seem to be, really feel inferior. So again, that leads back to the low self-esteem, right? So low self-esteem for me was an avenue I needed to follow through on because nobody was doing any research as far as addictions went. I mean, there was all kinds of crazy stuff back in the day on addictions, therapeutic communities where they would try to shame the addiction out of a person within 6 months, a year and a half. Some people were in there 3 years. I mean, they would really, really try to humiliate and shame you and shame, the addiction out of you. I mean, it's completely crazy. You had all kinds of theories going on at the time, and I'm going back 30 years ago. You got to understand the addictions field is very young compared to the medical field and other parts of the medical field. And the addiction field is kind of the bastard of the mental health field and the medical field when you think about it, addiction treatment. So anyway, I was passionate about low self-esteem. I wanted to know everything about it. I felt I had it. I felt it led me down a really bad rabbit hole. So interesting enough, the way to look at it is, what exactly does low self-esteem mean? What does it mean? Well, if you walk around feeling inferior or inadequate or insecure, or that something is wrong with you, and you're constantly feeling that feeling, and you're constantly having those thoughts, guess what? At some point, your body's going to look for relief. It's going to look to be soothed. It's going to look for something to get it out of that mindset, something to quell what we call the internal critic. Through all the years of counseling, I have never found an addicted person or a really substance abusing, heavy duty substance abusing person that didn't have an internal critic. Some of them would say, oh, I got that little bullshitter on my shoulder. But it's not only an addiction, it's just about anything. I mean, certainly it covers the gamut in addictions. We could go to cocaine addiction, meth addiction, heroin addiction. Okay. We could go to hallucinogenic addiction. We can look into, just about any addiction, all even gambling. I mean, it's the person does not feel comfortable in their own skin for whatever reason. They feel like they're less than. Low self-esteem creates feelings of less than others. I'm not worthy, that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? And it creates all kinds of havoc in the person, and it certainly creates addictions as far as I'm concerned. Bottom line, as I continued to focus on it, I started to realize where these feelings were coming from. How does one get these feelings of low self-esteem, which include inferiority, inadequacy, or insecurity, or whatever else makes you feel lower than hell or lower than whale shit? You know what I'm saying? Okay? Because a lot of you walking around have this. It's in epidemic proportions. And one way to deal with it is to try and soothe it through some kind of addiction or some kind of, narcissistic behavior is even soothing to it. There's no question about it. So as I was going and I was searching and I was doing the research in it, I really got to the point that I realized through my therapy that the thoughts create the feelings. Well, isn't that something? I mean, why do we have these feelings we're walking around with? Take a look at them. It's the thought. It's your thinking. You have a thought. You dwell on that thought. It creates a feeling. So if you have an angry thought, it's going to create an angry feeling in you. Now, with low self-esteem, it's pretty much having a feeling that you're not good and not as good as other people. You're less than. Okay, you're defective in some way. You're feeling inadequate. You're feeling inferior. Okay, so I mean, this thought, the thought is creating the feeling, which is creating, the way you're walking around, the negative feelings you're walking around with. It's your internal critic, whoever that internal critic is inside your head. Can be you, can be somebody from your past. We're going to check into all that. We're going to get into all that, not all today. We're going to get into it. Most important thing is how to get rid of it, how to get rid of that internal critic that keeps telling you you're not as good as. You're not as good as you shoulda, coulda, woulda. If you did, you're stupid. It labels you. you're ugly, you're fat, whatever. I mean, this is this critic that goes on in your head that creates this low self esteem, which can lead to depression. Low self esteem is very, very close to depression. I firmly believe you can't have depression if you don't have a low self esteem. I can believe you can have sadness if you have a good self esteem or if you have a low self, but having a low self esteem will create depression, leads more into depression. A good self esteem can feel sadness, which can look like depression. However, that person is dealing with sadness. They're not dealing with, depression at that point in time. I'll give you, for instance, if you lose somebody and they die, you can turn around and say, "Oh my God, how am I going to go on? I can't go on. There's no way I can go on." See, that's a low self-esteem creating insecurity in you. You don't have the confidence. Low self-esteem will rob your confidence. So you don't have that confidence to say, "Oh man, I really miss them," and I'm so sad. I'm so upset that they're gone. Okay, that's normal. That's sadness. But coming up with uh, uh, talk and beliefs that I can't go on without them. That is saying you don't have the confidence. Certainly, uh, in most cases, the one that passed away would want you to go on and go on without them and thrive, right? So you have to ask yourself, why? What is the difference and what's causing this? And it's this internal critic inside that fills you with such negativity, this internal negative critic that just fills you up with the ideas that you can't do it. And it leads to you not having confidence. Now, again, where did it come from? We're going to look at that. Today, I'm just brushing this over to give you an example, give you some ideas of what's going on. How can parents promote self esteem? Okay. Now, not only can parents promote self esteem through unconditional love and encouragement, but parents can prevent low self esteem in a child by being careful of their criticism because somebody installed that internal critic in us. I don't know who it was in your case. I know who it was in my case. Bottom line is somebody installed it. Okay, it got installed somewhere. And in some cases, we installed our own. We installed our own. Like early on in my life, I had, and still do, have ADHD. I didn't know what it was. Okay, all I know is I wasn't very good in school and I wasn't very good in coursework because of this ADHD. But back in the day, nobody knew about ADHD. It took me to a doctor. Doctor said, "Oh, he has a very, very active mind." Well, no doubt about that, because ADHD has absolutely nothing to do with the person's smarts or their IQ. Okay. And ADHD really has nothing to do with that. People can be very smart, and there are people very smart out there, and people who are, CEOs who are running major, major corporations that have ADHD. The point I'm trying to make is early on in the beginning, when you're a child and you have ADHD, or you have something else going on, okay, maybe you believe you're not good looking. Me, especially, I found this with women that we had in our counseling center, young girls, believing they were ugly. There's nothing ugly about them, but in their mind, they were ugly. So, this is how this works. Okay. Something somewhere instills it. Now, somebody probably made fun of these girls. Maybe it was online, maybe it wasn't online. Somebody created their internal critic by brandishing them and putting them down and saying they looked ugly, or they did it to themselves by comparing themselves to beauty queens online or something. But in all the girls that I saw came through our office that said they looked ugly, this was not true. This was no way true. So what's happening is they're entertaining a what we call a thought distortion. See, the thoughts create the feelings, but the negative thoughts, lots of times with distorted thoughts, they're not true. Okay, they are not true. They are false thoughts. And then you can get rid of them. And we're going to show you how to get rid of them in the next few episodes. And you can get rid of them by talking back to them. But there's different ways and different techniques to talk back to these self-defeating, negative, critical thoughts that are in your head. And unfortunately, if you don't deal with them, eventually they'll deal with you because you're going to look for something to soothe this thinking, this irritability, this negative pain, and all the negative feelings that go along with demeaning yourself. Because really, what you're doing is you're demeaning yourself in your head. I mean, a baby born into this world, who can deny this? A baby born into this world deserves love, respect, and value, right? I mean, seriously, can anybody deny that? So we were all babies at one time, and then we started to grow up. And then we started to become victims of our environment and victims of society in a way. Okay. And there's good parts to it, there's bad parts to it. But for people with low self-esteem who are walking around with an internal critic and they are their biggest critic in their head, okay, it is leading them on a path to some kind of self-destructive behavior. I don't know if it'll be drugs. I don't know if it'll be gambling. I don't know if it'll be sex. I don't know what it's going to be. Manifest in some kind of OCD or something, but obsessive compulsive disorder. But low self-esteem is going to take you on a horrible dark ride, and eventually the location that you end up at is depression. Well, what happens with depression? Well, when it gets to the point where you're depressed, and even so depressed, you can start to entertain suicide. You can start to have, various thoughts of suicidal ideations. I mean, you can carry around these suicidal ideations for quite a while. I totally do not believe you can be really depressed if you have a good self-esteem. I can see you being really depressed if you have a horrible self-esteem. I can see you being depressed, but it'll add to the self-esteem as well if you're depleting brain chemical through various drugs or in some other way. You're depleting the chemicals in the reward center of your brain, through drugs or gambling or whatever. Internet, can do that too. Can do that too. There's no question about it. These likes, every time you get a like, it spurs a little bit of dopamine. Well, depending on how long you're online, depending on, how much socializing you're doing online, depending on all those circumstances, the likes, the not likes, the aggravation you can get into online. I mean, you're depleting brain chemical, and that can lead to depression as well, low self-esteem and depression. I mean, everybody's talking about it now. It's coming out all over the place. We want you to know that God doesn't make junk, right? And a baby born into this world does deserve love, value, and respect. You got to learn to give it to yourself. Okay, you got to come first. Okay, self-esteem means you take care of self. Okay, that's the most important part of it. A lot of people rely on other people's feedback in order to feel good about themselves. That's not the way to do it. Okay. Most importantly is for you to feel good about yourself, your decisions. They're your decisions. And, believe me when I tell you, you can change your life and really be anything you want to be. Like I said, I was a almost addict. I've been on over 100 shows, written books. Um, I've really accomplished a lot. I wrote the theory in Warning Signs, a guidebook for parents on low self-esteem being a disease over 20 some years ago. Ended up, really interviewing some pretty hard people just to see where they stood with low self-esteem. It's always there somewhere, unless they, are really a psychopath. And even some psychopaths have told me that, they down deep inside their root cause is their self-esteem bothers them. It bothers them. I don't know how to believe that because, they really don't have a whole lot of remorse for anybody. But this is the links I've gone to focus on low self-esteem and to focus on, where it can take people, how dangerous it can be. And, we look at these school shootings, we look at these suicides. I mean, these people, I just don't believe feel good about themselves. I believe they are loaded with low self-esteem. They are feeling either inadequate or inferior or insecure or whatever's going on. But I mean, there's something going on there. Yes, there are, certain mental diagnoses that can set a person up to become homicidal and suicidal. But I truly believe it all starts with what they think of themselves. And especially if they're going to commit suicide after the act, that tells you pretty much a lot about what you want to know. What bothers me, and I wrote about it 20 some years ago, and it's in this book, um, like how we've become so desensitized to this violence and this rage. I mean, every time there's a new school shooting, it's news for maybe a day or two, and it's like, oh, okay, on to the next one. I mean, I can't believe, and I'm sure people around my age or even younger realized when they went to school that there was no, security guards, and they don't have to worry about people bringing guns to school. Yeah, I mean, this is really, really off the top of the charts. But I will tell you something. There's no way somebody's going to go in and commit this kind of violence if they feel good about themselves. So they're obviously not feeling good about themselves. They have a low self-esteem. Why are we not focusing on that? Why are we not dealing with that? If that is the root cause, why are we not there? You know, Parents again can promote good self-esteem through encouragement, unconditional love, caring for their kids, and setting boundaries for the kids to make sure the kids do the right thing. And if they break the boundaries, then there's some kind of consequence. Doesn't have to be some corporal kind of punishment where they had, the hell beat out of them or something, but there's other, lesser uh, uh, boundaries that can be broken. For instance, you're not home on time. You're 2 hours late. You're supposed to be home at 11. It's 1 o'clock in the morning. So as a consequence, you could take a phone, or something like that. There could be loss of a phone for a week. That really upsets a kid. I mean, there's a lot of different things that can be set up, but because you love them, because I love you, I'm going to make sure that you stay within the parameters of taking care of yourself. My rule in my house is you take care of yourself. I'm working, I'm giving you a house to live in, I take care of you. My simple rule is you take care of yourself. Okay. And that promotes self-esteem because it shows the child the parent cares. It shows the child the parent is willing to go above and beyond to set boundaries and limits for inappropriate or self-destructive behavior. So you have all that going on. And in the end, a lot of children are very happy that their parents, maybe not at the time, but later on, they're very happy their parents took a stand and were strict with them in certain areas. Okay, so parents can really promote and build self-esteem too. What I warn parents about is excessive criticism, because as I mentioned in the beginning, low self-esteem pretty much is based on an internal critic, and that internal critic is constantly berating you and putting you down in your head. Should have done this, should have done that. Boy, you're a loser. Boy, you're ugly. Boy, you're stupid. And that is what we want to get rid of. Okay. So if parents set up more healthier consequences versus criticism, I think it'll get them a lot further. I really do. Because and the younger you do it and you set up these boundaries, the better, the easier time you're going to have parenting your child as your child gets older. The older the child is, the harder it is to do the parenting with the consequences, the boundaries, and very hard, in fact, even in counseling, to get a child 16 or 17 who's like spoiled. Like one of our, worst diagnosis that a child can walk into the facility with is that the child's spoiled. That's now your work's really cut out for you. And so is the parents, and they've got to change all the way they've been parenting the child and enabling the child, and knowingly, not I will say, not knowingly into various situations that could be unhealthy and really negative. We see a lot of this enabling of parents and families and addictions. So it's very important, and it definitely is not helping their self-esteem. Their self-esteem, the more they use drugs or anything else, is going to go lower and lower and lower. The name of the game is to love yourself, be compassionate with yourself, take care of yourself. That's the most important thing. What serves good purpose for you? As I said, you were that child that was born that deserves love, value, and respect. Well, guess what? Your parents should give that to you as you were born and you're an infant, you're starting to grow up, and through your years growing up. However, the bottom line is you have to give it to yourself at some point in time, because that can be the difference between having a low self-esteem and entertaining insecurities, inadequacy, and feeling inferior around others. Okay, or that can be the difference between excelling and feeling good about yourself and realizing you deserve value and moving on and getting ahead. And also, what if you don't have somebody around you that encourages you? I saw something recently where 30% of kids out there don't have a mentor. That tells me we got 30% of the population of children that doesn't have somebody they can really trust or somebody they can learn from, or somebody they respect. That's upsetting and troubling. Nobody's putting the time in. I mean, parenting, is it really the lost career? I mean, is it gone? I mean, I think, and I know parents are going to get out of it what they put into it with their kids. It's going to be the hardest thing you're ever going to love to do. And we have worked with thousands of families. As I said, I wrote a book on it 20 some years ago, after Columbine, but before all these other shootings. And you can think how I feel. Think about how I feel looking at, shooting every 2 weeks or something for a while there. I mean, this is really pretty crazy. I mean, first thing I say to myself, well, where are the parents? Yeah, maybe he does have a mental problem, but still, no, where are the parents? Why didn't he get help? What's going on here? Why is he in counseling? Where do you get the gun? So all that goes through my mind. But again, what if no one is there to encourage you? What if there's nobody? Okay. We're gonna show you what to do because you at some point in time you have to be the one that wants to do it and the one to take care of yourself. Your father can't do it for you. At a certain point, your mother can't do it for you. At a certain point and a certain age, there's nobody that can do it for you but yourself. You have to want to do it. And that's exactly how this works. That's why it's not called other people's self-esteem. It's called self-esteem because you yourself have to do it. Nobody else can do it for you. So we'll be up next week with something else on self-esteem, and we're going to start to look into how you can turn it around and how you can progress, be successful, and thrive. Thanks so much for watching today. I know I've been long-winded, but I am very passionate about this. I have gone to the ends of the earth to to talk to various types of people to really get an understanding of this and how detrimental it can be. So thank you so much. Have a great day. God bless. And stay safe out there.